Hello and welcome back to the HYMO track guide series. I know it's been a while since the last track guide, but we're finally back. A lot has changed. In the meantime, we had a big 1.9 update for ACC. We changed the old Porsche from the 991 generation now into the 992 generation, but finally back with the track guides, and again following what's happening in LFM. This weekend we have Donington Park for the 45-minute series, and since this is the most popular British DLC track, we're gonna cover that one for you today. So, Donington Park. On the face of it, looks like it's a very simple track. First sector, basically only one corner. Second sector, 3 corners. Last sector, a chicane and 2 hairpins. It seems like a very simple layout, but being a very old school track, all of those sections have a lot of small detail that is very tough to master. So even though not that many corners on the track and a very short lap, there's a lot of little details here and there that make it a very challenging track. So without further ado, let's take a look at one of the laps around the track, and I'll go corner by corner and explain everything in detail. So coming into the first corner and the first braking zone, here a lot of people are gonna use a little bit of the pit exit to just open up the corner as much as possible. Remember that 2 tires still need to be on the track, so don't cross fully the dotted line, but try to open up the corner as much as possible and use all the track to minimize the angle of approach into turn 1. For the braking reference, you can see where the painted part on the left hand side is. After it ends, that's where you're gonna start braking. You have also the reference board on the right hand side of the track. Just before you're about to pass it, that's when you start braking. And you can afford to brake a tiny bit later than initially you would think it's possible. The corner is quite long and the apex is deeper into the corner than you expect. So you're braking just a tiny bit later than what it seems like should be correct, but then you're braking deep into the corner and you're carrying a lot of speed into the corner as the apex is quite late. It's gonna be an overall theme throughout the track, I feel like. There's a lot of corners that are extremely long, so here at Donington it's all gonna be about how much speed you can carry through the corner into the apex that's very far into the corner. Here on the inside of the corner you can see a little service road, and where that service road ends, and you have again a little bit of green paint on the inside. I'd say that where that ends, you aim here to apex the corner. From there you're gonna start accelerating to the outside of the track. Like I said, with Donington being an old school track, there is very little runoff on the outside of the track. We have a bit of curbs, but remember, in the wet those curbs are gonna be slippery. And in the dry, you don't want to go over those curves because there's the grass there. Don't go wide on the grass here. It's very easy to get pressure loss and overall screw up your exit. So stay on the track. Obviously try to extend the track width as much as possible, but just don't touch the grass. And now to conclude the sector 1, just a simple round down the hill, trying to minimize the distance, trying to minimize how much you're scrubbing your front tires, placing the car on the left hand side of the track, coming into the old hairpin. Now starting the second sector of the track, and a very tricky corner, the one that Donington is very famous for, the old hairpin, in a very difficult braking zone, and one where it's very difficult to judge when to brake, how much to brake, how much speed are you carrying through the corner, and also very little references that you can use. For the braking reference, you have that little marker and the board on the right hand side of the track, but you're gonna be braking just as you're level with that board, so you're not even gonna be able to see it anymore. So you can use that board somewhat as your reference to when you should hit the brakes, but you're gonna be already looking far forward into the apex of the corner, so you're really just gonna have to judge your distance to the corner and hit that braking point by feel. Overall on the entry, it's very easy here to have an approach that's gonna put you under disadvantage for the old hairpin, and your car being pointed way too much to the left. It's easy to make the corner too tight for yourself, so make sure that when you're going down the hill and you're coming from the first sector, try to position that car as much on the left. It's mostly a 4th gear corner. In some of the cars you're gonna be downshifting to 3rd, in some of the cars you're gonna do that downshift and then a short shift to 4th. It really depends on the car, and it also depends on the situation. Obviously with 4th gear you're not gonna have as much of that engine braking, and on the entry overall you're gonna be able to carry a bit more speed. Sometimes if you feel like you need that little bit more engine braking and more rotation on the entry from the rear axle, you can downshift to 3rd, use a little bit more engine braking. That will give you an overall slow down the car a tiny bit more with the engine braking. It really depends on the situation. Those bollards on the inside of the corner will be long gone, probably in any race situation or even qualifying. Someone will knock them over straight away. But you can use that curb on the inside, you can easily climb it over it. Obviously don't hit the grass, you don't want to do that, but you can easily hit that curb and already start accelerating out of the corner and up the hill. Here on the exit, it really depends on what you feel like works the best for you. Some people, for the sake of maximizing the speed that can be carried through the corner, carry a lot more speed through the entry and then extend the corner all the way past the curb and drive on the grass a little bit. It works well in qualifying, as you're just maximizing the speed carried through the corner, but then it's easy to get it wrong and overdo it. It's also then easy, like I mentioned on turn 1, easy to lose the pressure. So for a racing scenario, take a more conservative approach, try to use as much of the curb, but without going to the grass, just to get a consistent line, easier to reproduce in the race. First sector was all downhill, so now we have to climb the hill back up, bring the car over to the right hand side of the track, and then back from the right all the way to the left to get the best position for the braking zone into this upcoming corner. You can cut the curb here a little bit and then straight line the braking. That also is gonna be your braking point just as that curb stops, and you also have that little marker there on the left. Just as you're past those, straight away hit on the brakes, brake in the straight line. Then the corner starts to tighten up and becomes tighter and tighter. Brake and slow down the car throughout the corner as it gets tighter and tighter and tighter, and as you're going slower and slower, you can also tighten the radius you're following. So similarly to turn 1, you're trying to bring that speed deep into the corner and brake deep into the corner. The apex is way later into the corner than you expect. You can see the curb on the inside. You're not hitting the apex as that curb starts. You're braking throughout the corner from the outside, and you're trying to hit the apex just past those three bollards, where you can also see the rubber is laid down on that curb. That approach is gonna maximize the amount of speed you're able to carry through the corner without really compromising your exits, as here you arrive on the apex, which would be the point at which you're traveling the slowest through the corner anyway. So from here you can already start accelerating the outside of the track, and again try to use all the curb on the outside without going on the grass. Here it's very easy to get a really weird bounce, lose pressure. Sometimes that green part of the curb also is very sleepy, especially in the race. Still going up the hill and approaching a very difficult braking zone, and one where it's very tough to say where to find your braking reference. Again, the type of corner where you just need to trust your own ability to judge the distance and hit your braking point. Very little references you can get, with also the apex being completely blind, being behind the hill. The curb itself is quite grippy, so you can brake over it just to open up the corner a little bit. Obviously it's a no-go in the rain, but if it's dry, the curb is nice and grippy, so you can use it. There is a little orange bollard that indicates where the apex of the corner is, but it's very likely that it's gonna be already gone in qualifying or in the race. It's not longer gonna be there because you cut that corner. Some car sooner or later will just run over that bollard, it's no longer gonna be there. You can, for some sort of reference, see the board on the inside of the corner. You can also potentially use the trees that are in the background to kind of judge where are you in comparison to those trees that you see in the distance. You can somewhat judge where that apex is gonna appear as you're coming over the hill, and you're gonna be aiming to cut that curb, but just the right amount. It's very easy for the car to get unsettled as you're coming off that curb, especially the rear right tire. As the car is coming off the curb, it's very easy for that tire to hit that curb in a really weird way, and the rear of the car is gonna bounce, completely ruining the exit, which is very important. Here we have a big back straight. After here, the exit needs to be prioritized. So try to cut as much as possible. Since we are trying to prioritize that exit, all the braking needs to be done before you hit that curb, and right as you're coming off that curb, you're already starting to accelerate. But be careful, because it's very difficult here with traction. The corner is very long and it keeps on going, so you're trying to accelerate while still turning right. It's very difficult for the rear tires here. It's very slidey, so open up the steering, allow the rear tires to grip up. Sometimes a little oversteer will happen, a little of counter steer will be needed, so give those rear tires as much grip as possible and use it to accelerate in the best way you can out of the corner, and obviously open it up all the way to the outside. That's gonna allow you to carry as much speed out of there. Overall, I would say that through here, the biggest mistake you can do is just overdoing it on the entry, either hopping over the curb too much or just carrying too much speed through the corner in the way that in the middle here you're gonna end up with the car too far on the left side of the track, and that's gonna compromise your exit way too much. The rears are not gonna be able to handle it, and you're gonna probably slide on the exit. So you have to somewhat aim so the car is in the middle of the road. That way you can nicely open up the steering, open up the exit, and allow those rear tires to grip up, helping you accelerate nicely out of there. And now we have only the last sector to go, a chicane with two hairpins, starting with that famous high-speed Donington chicane, the one where again here's gonna be exactly the same story. You're trying to carry as much speed into the chicane without really compromising your exit, which is going to be crucial in the race, with the hairpin after the chicane being a primary overtaking opportunity. Braking references here are pretty simple. Obviously you have the hill that you're coming over, you have the boards on the outside that can be easily used as a references, but obviously hitting the right braking point itself is not that easy. Use that reference of the hill and the first marker. Try braking around 2 to 3 car lengths past it, and similarly to the previous corner, you can use the curb on the outside while braking, obviously not in the wet, and here it seems like it's a little bit more bouncy, and it's easy to potentially unsettle the car here. You do want to open up the chicane as much as possible, so try using that curb, but be careful. The car will definitely feel like it's losing a little bit of grip and it's getting a tiny bit unsettled as you're riding over it, especially as you're coming off it. Here in the replay on the first apex of the chicane, we have those bollards again, the same as with all the bollards elsewhere on the track. They'll be gone. Some car will run over them and bump them off the track, so it's actually gonna be easier to see what's happening there, and you're gonna be aiming to cut as much as you can without the extending of track limits. This is gonna be the biggest problem here, getting a cut here, and what you should do to aim to maximize track limits here. For me, what usually works best here is that I can cut just ever so slightly the grass on the entry, but I cannot be on the grass anymore whatsoever on the exit of that curb. The second part of the chicane is fortunately way more straightforward. You're just aiming to have 2 tires at least on that red and white curb, and obviously there's also a gravel on the inside which you definitely do not want to touch, and that's gonna also prevent you from exceeding the limits there in the first place. Accelerate out of there, straight line the car to avoid it bouncing too much. You are going over a little bit of a bump as you're going through the chicane, so just straighten the car out, cut as much as possible, and you'll be fine. If you're not throwing the car too much left to right, you'll be fine. The car will be stable enough. But remember, there is that bump, so if you do something too crazy, obviously the car will react to that bump and potentially can get unsettled on the exit. Like I said, throughout the whole chicane, the aim was to carry as much speed through it. So with all that speed, you are likely gonna end up running also to the limits on the left hand side of the track on the exit. Be careful there, easy to get the pressure loss there, and overall you don't want to screw yourself over with that exit, as the next braking zone is gonna be that primarily overtaking opportunity. Whether you are the car that's chasing, you want to get the nicest exit here, size up some move into the hairpin, and if you're defending, obviously you don't want to give your competitors an opportunity in the first place. Now 2 hairpins to go. Coming into the first one, fortunately here it's a bit more straightforward with the braking point, but again you don't have any direct reference in your line of vision to where exactly to brake, but you have those braking boards on the left hand side. As you're going past the first one, just past that board, start braking. Initially it seems like quite a simple hairpin, but when you look at it from the top, you can see actually it's more like a square. I mean, in the corners of the track it's literally a square. You're gonna be braking as you're hitting the first apex, and you're gonna be already accelerating out of the corner while hitting the second apex on the exit, on the inside of the exit. So as you're braking into the corner and you're passing that second board on the left, you start trail braking and bringing the car over to the inside of the corner, and you're braking deep into the corner past that first apex, and you rotate the car all the way to that minimum speed point. Here personally I often make a line in the way that I miss just a little bit the first apex, and then I rotate the car hard on the throttle and straighten out the second part, prioritizing the exit. First gear, the tires are gonna be struggling for traction, so straighten out the car as much as possible, allow those rear tires to grip up in the best way, so you're accelerating as fast as possible out of the corner. Minimize how much the traction control is here working for you. You don't really need to be careful on the throttle here, but just straighten out the car as much as possible to prevent the unnecessary traction control intervention. The last corner. The braking here is gonna be quite easy. For reference, you can take the board that's on the inside, and most people will just look at the curb that they're passing on the outside. Right as you're in the middle of that curb, when you are around 2 car lengths before that curb ends, that's when you hit the brakes and you brake almost in sort of a diagonal line towards the inside of the track. Here the apex is a lot deeper into the corner than you expect. Initially, as you're braking into the corner, as you're trail braking into the corner, you initially miss the inside because you are aiming for that later apex, and you're trying to prepare the line for the exit. You want to rotate the car deep into the corner, hit that apex, and have the car positioned in a way that you can nicely go on the throttle and then already open up the steering, allowing the car to pick up traction, use the grip available to already start accelerating out of the corner. If you take that corner way too tight, then you would either have to wait with the throttle, or if you would already start accelerating, there would be too much turning that would be needed to be done still, and the rear tires would not be able to handle it. So you're missing the first part of the corner, but that gives you a beautiful line on the exit and allows the car to get a really nice traction and accelerate out of the corner and fire you out of there to the line to finish the lap. So that's Donington. I hope you enjoyed the track guide and you found it helpful. Let me know in the comments if you liked it. Also tell me what track would you like to see next, and see you in the next one then.